Hi and welcome back. And I'm just going to say something to Jim while we're talking. Don't forget to turn your camera around, Jim. That's it. You thought about it same time as I did. So yeah, welcome back everybody. Graham H got the front seat this time, so he's got pole position. Paul wasn't long behind him. Everybody else is just slowly joining. So how did you track? Yeah, I saw that comment, but it couldn't have been an important one, Diva. So all clapped out and ready for second half, Jill. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's good to go into the break at the appropriate place. So Jim was just that minute or two early there, so that worked quite well. It doesn't matter when we stop. So the just watching the comments building up. So we'll just give it another few minutes just to get everybody joined in again. And if you all agree with me, I know that I must admit I haven't looked through the slideshow, even though Jim sent me it. I haven't looked at any of the pictures, so I'm sat here looking at the pictures at the same time as you are and enjoying it just as much as you all are. So going very well this evening, and hopefully we should be getting into the second half shortly. Just for those people who were a little bit late joining, although I can't see those people, not at the moment, no comments at the moment, so I'll not do what I was just going to say, because I was just going to give out the comments again. Just as a matter of interest, Graham H, is the sound any different at all from myself? Because I've with this new webcam, I've just taken off the cellophane off the front, you know, the bit of film that they put on to stop it getting scratched. Didn't know whether that was having any difference or not, so we'll see if it makes any difference. As long as you can hear Jim okay, that's all that matters. So some great images up to present, and also a nice story to go with it. So got some great times from remembering where you've been, and it's good to share your images with other people. So I must admit, some people say, well, in the old days about the showing people your holiday snaps, but certainly I think this is a few levels above. So just looking at those remarks, Paul, not as good as normal sound. Right, I must admit, I was just talking to Jim in the break, and I think what I'm going to do is try and disable the mic from the webcam and use the original one, because it sounds like it was a bit better. So but hopefully it's a little bit better, and we can get going again. So right, hopefully everyone has joined us, and we're back to normal. Oh, I did say about 1/4 past, didn't I? So I better just wait for the last one or two. For some reason my counter of how many people are joining us tonight doesn't seem to be working particularly well. So unless people let me know that they're here, I'm only showing 7 people at the moment, but I know there's more than that because I can see more in the chat. So welcome back everybody. Alan and Peter just popped up, so I'm always about 20 seconds or so later getting the messages than when you type them, so it does just take a little bit to get the messages through. So we're just about there anyway, so just give people another couple of minutes as people are just popping up. Hi Mark, Mark's just popped in. Doreen's just popped in again, so I haven't seen any of them very nice fox pictures just lately. Doreen, have you not been going out? Have you been having a bit of a rest? So yeah, I'm getting numbers are getting up to 20 from what people have said. So Bob has got his usual glass charged up again, another drop of the brown stuff. So he's saying he's enjoying the talk and looking forward to the second half. Caroline's back with Dave. Hi Caroline and Dave, hope you're both keeping well. Saw your images recently, Caroline, looking good. So they're some great images. Yeah, just seen Graham H's remark there. Bob and I are on the back seat. We were a bit late getting there, so Diva's back, Richard's back, Neil's back. So Neil's got some black stuff. Must be a drop of that stuff from Newcastle, or it could be from Ireland even. Yeah, we're just getting up to. Just got another couple of minutes, so I will just give those quickly.
Ah,
can anybody hear? Don't forget it does come through to me a little bit late, so we couldn't always have part 2 next week. Let me just... Can anybody hear me now? Can hear you now, GD. Oh, good. Thanks, Graham. Right. If you can... I don't know why you wanted to hear me anyway. It's Jim who we need to hear, isn't it? So, right. I'm back on the old mic now. It's about probably 20-year-old, but it works well. So, without further ado, I'm just going to get over to Jim and let him carry on. So... right, over to you, Jim.
Right. Hello, welcome back. Sorry about the slight additional interlude, but here we go. So, moving on. Maligne Lake, which is near, well, it's about 40 kilometres from Jasper, is one of 2 lakes you can go for a boat trip. The other lake is Lake Minnewanka, which is near Banff. This lake, Maligne Lake, is about 14 kilometres long. Just before you get there, you get to a place called Medicine Lake, which actually disappears during certain points of the year. So you go thundering off through the glacier lake, as you can see, where it's all been torn out. The power of glaciers is something quite beyond thought, really. But I think this particular picture tends to tell you that you go along at a fair old rate of knots. And then you come to a wonderful, silent, quiet place which is called Spirit Island. The First Nations mythology will tell you about a couple of young lovers, if you think Romeo and Juliet. The other thought is that it came from a photograph taken many, many years ago, which has often been used to suggest the spirit of Canada. But it's a beautiful setting. The only way to get there is by boat. There is a viewing platform, but there's also a little bit of pathway where you can walk around. But it's just so calm and peaceful. It's just a wonderful place. So Spirit Island suits it well. Along the Icefield Parkway, you come to the Athabasca Glacier, which is on the Columbia Icefield. It's about 3.7 miles long and varies between 300 and 900 feet thick. It has receded over a mile in the last 125 years, and that receding has quickened up over the last 20 or 30 years. Some idea of scale. At the bottom, near the base of the picture, you can see some vehicles. A few of those vehicles are very large, what are called recreation vehicles, or RVs. And up on the glacier itself, on the left-hand side, you can see a few dots. And those are vehicles taking people up onto the glacier, where you can actually walk on it. And this is the vehicle that you go up in. Those tyres are immense. They're much taller than me, and I'm 6'2". So it gives you some idea of how high you're sitting. But the pressure in the tyres is somewhere between 15 and 17 psi for those it means anything to, which enables the coach to have grip on the ice They have to be specially made for the job. And when you get up there, you can see the vehicles, I hope, in the distance there, and little people walking about. You are allowed to walk up there by yourself, but it can be quite dangerous to do so because there are crevices, and if you think between, as I said, it's between 300 and 900 feet thick, your chances of getting out of one of those holes that open up are very small. Every day the area in which you are allowed to walk is checked and changed if necessary. So you spend, I don't know, about half an hour or so on the top of the glacier. We were fortunate enough to do this some years ago when the weather was actually lovely and sunny, and we got up there as the last coach, and there were only about 10 dozen people with us. So it was quite magical. You think it's going to be solid ice, but in fact it's quite crunchy. It jinks in sound, and there's water running through just under your feet. On the other hand, you don't really get wet feet. It's strange, really, but a wonderful experience. Waterfalls. Another waterfall. This is Natural Bridge. The water used to flow over that stone there, but over many, many years it has bored a way through. And when you think this is hard, solid rock, you can see the power of the water. It looks like just us and Billy No Mates up there on the left, who are looking there on this day, which was a bit wet and miserable, but these things are always nice to look at and different during all the different conditions. A bit more nature again. Bighorn sheep. You see quite a few of these around, and I don't think it needs any explanation as to why they are called bighorn sheep. These can get up to 300 pounds in weight. They're very sociable sheep and wander around in groups of up to 100. King of the Castle. The great thing is to watch these animals walking around on the mountainside. They seem to be able to walk on ledges where it just doesn't seem possible to do so. Absolutely built for the area, of course. You sometimes see groups of them in known places where they lick the salt off the side of the mountain. There are some areas where there's more salt than others, and they find them. It is thought that they need this salt as part of their diet, but it could just as easily be that they just enjoy it. But they do nevertheless do it, and it was good to actually catch them at it, so to speak. There are also mountain goats. Mountain goats can actually survive up to 13,000 feet, and in temperatures down to minus 46 degrees, with winds around the 99 mile per hour mark. So they're absolutely made for the job. This is home territory for them. This is early June, so it's just shedding its winter coat. This is also the time when they've had their young, and their young are beginning to go up the slopes with them. Lovely to catch that. Last year was the first time I'd ever seen one of the young ones. And this suggests what this particular one thought of the photographer, I think. just to look at the top and see it. If you go back to the back of the picture, it doesn't look particularly rough or anything, and it's very smooth, and then it gradually falls down the hole and seems to gather momentum. And then, of course, you come out onto the main fall itself. The power behind the water is very dramatic indeed, and very, very noisy. It obviously matters what time of the year you're here. The amount of water in the river varies according to when the glaciers are melting, which tends to be at around the end of May, June time. And here it is a bit later in the year. As you can see, there's slightly less water, but it's still very, very, very strong. And you might think that that's not such a good place to go for a swim. You might also be amazed to find that some people have tried it. It doesn't bear thinking about what actually happened to them, but I suspect that alcohol may have played a part. What I love is what it does to the rocks. It cuts these extraordinary shapes, and gradually this will wend its way and these rocks will gradually disappear. But it takes a very, very long time. This is some waterfalls, but the main point of this is with all the spray, you do get rainbows. But they're quite difficult to take pictures of because very often they're not very strong. But on this particular occasion, it got a bit more colour. And with a bluish sky as well, in the sun, it actually helps. A view from a different angle, still getting a nice rainbow. Now here's a picture which could spell danger. The people that you see walking along are walking from the car park to the bridge across the river where you can watch the waterfall and to the viewing platforms. So therefore the bear has walked into a funnel from which they can't actually escape. Now, if a bear feels trapped, that is when you can be in great danger. And naturally, being the photographer that I am, I had the lens peeled just in case. But fortunately for all those people, the bear wandered back up from where it came from. Obviously, he didn't fancy that sort of food on the occasion. This is a picture of Columbia Icefield Skyway, a glass walkway with a drop of around about 900 to 1,000 feet if you were to fall through. This was, well, let's say there was quite a good deal of discussion about it because many people think that it spoils the nature of the area and that the nature and the wonderful scenery is beautiful in itself and doesn't need man-made additions such as this. On the other hand, the way you walk through it, it tells a story of the area and the geology before you go out onto the glass and look down and see it for yourself. The glass is in actual fact very, very thick and as strong as steel. There are various layers, of which the thin one is at the top, and that's because that will by nature get scratched and will need to be changed from time to time. And aren't we all brave, out on the glass? But don't look down. Emerald Lake. No prizes for guessing why it's called Emerald Lake. The house-like property on the left-hand side there is in fact a cafe restaurant which belongs to the hotel behind. The hotel has a main part which is the restaurant and facilities, but where you sleep is all in log cabins spread around. They're actual two-story log cabins with an apartment downstairs and one upstairs. It's a lovely place to stay, but quite bemusing, of course, because there's people coming to look at the lake and walking through. And this is just to show you it's at a different time of the year. This is September. And what has happened with the water is that the rock felt, which I will explain more of later, has gradually sunk to the bottom, therefore letting far more light through, and the lakes themselves become transparent. So you can see all the logs laying at the bottom of the lake, which have generally been pushed there by avalanches. I think I'd like that property though as a house. You can also canoe on the main lake, and that will set you back about £50 an hour. But it's a popular thing to do with Canadian canoes, which are broader in the beam than the ones we generally have here, and can be operated by a single paddle. Obviously, in times past, you just see those going up and down the riverways. There is a walkway right the way round the mountain, right the way round the lake. You just have to be a bit energetic because you have to climb over tree trunks and other bits and pieces. But it's and the odd bear can turn up to make life interesting. You don't always have to go searching for a bear, and yes, it is another bear. Sometimes the bear is very, very close at hand, and this one decided to sit itself at the edge of the car park. It's a very large bear, but it just seemed to be interested in everything that was going on. Grizzly bears. I am much more wary of grizzlies than black bears. They both can be dangerous, but black bears tend to prefer to keep away from you, whereas grizzlies can very silently stalk you. Not a bear to take lightly. Railway lines are a favourite haunt with all types of bears. It is said that they eat the grain that falls from the trains. And bearing in mind that grain is out there in the wet as well, and it lays around, it's actually fermenting, and there's nothing like a drunk bear. I have actually seen tourists running after bears, which, if you've given up on life and don't like living, is quite a sensible thing to do, I suppose. I've seen very few grizzlies, but there were actually two. Yeah. These are by their size young ones, probably no more than 5 years old, still in the playful stage, but they will get to be a lot more powerful. There are a lot of elk around in the area. This one is the mother, and she has a calf. And this is one of those glorious missed opportunities, because when I was looked over and saw them, the calf was actually suckling from the mother, but by the time I pulled the vehicle in safely, got out and got round, said calf had made a run for it, and that is as good as picture as I could get. So there is a mother there, you can see, and just behind the calf. Sometimes trees can be very lovely, and sometimes they can very much get in the way. Elk can be, they're always aware of you and wary of you and look out. In the main, they will disappear, but they want to be left alone. The one time to keep away from them is in the mating season, and when there are calves, you want to keep your distance at that point, because obviously they're very protected towards the calves, and if there's a bull elk around when it's trying to mate, you would not be too popular if you're in the way. I've spoken about the lakes being frozen. This is Lake Louise, and in the winter it's frozen to many feet thick, and they skate on it, and they also hold an ice festival where ice carvers make wonderful large sculptures, and I do mean large. Lake Louise is probably the most famous of the lakes along the Icefield Parkway and in the Canadian Rockies, and I'm taking a picture from the end, which is in front of the Fairmont Chateau Lake Louise. This picture was taken late May, and as you can see, it has only just started defreezing. But this picture was taken just a few days later. It's that quick. The ice has basically melted, and you're left with this thin ice on top. The wonderful colour is beginning to come through. And as you walk around the pathway that goes along the side of the lake, you get this wonderful chinking sound, and it's quite magical in its own way. And then, of course, within a matter of another couple of days, that's all gone, and you have the lake in all its glory. This was taken in sunshine. It's far from being the best picture I have, but it demonstrates the point. It does seem to change colour. If you've got the sun on it, or if you haven't got the sun, etc., etc. So a word about the colours. I've mentioned that as the glaciers move, they push along grit underneath, which works its way with the summer melt down into the lake. That then blocks out some of the colours that you get from light and leaves us with these greens and blues. During the course of the year, that rock felt, as they call it in Canada, they call it something different in Switzerland, but I can't remember what that was. That rock felt gradually sinks to the bottom, and then the lakes themselves become more transparent, and that's when you can see down through to the bottom. But they do still retain magnificent colours. As I've also just said, you can walk right the way around from one end to the other, but you can see the pathway on the left-hand side there. This is looking back from the other end of the lake towards the Fairmont Chateau Lake Louise Hotel. I think it's a wonderful picture because of the colours, and you can see that the water there's not sufficient water so far to fill up the lake entirely. And you can see the mountains in the different, and it's all very lovely in the sunshine. But that building absolutely horrifies me. I think that it is totally out of place there. A different structure would be far more in keeping with the area. So when you got to the end of the lake, you can wander up through a wood, gradually climbing up, and along pathways such as this. You keep going, you will notice that there's a chain on the right hand side which you can hold on a nice day like this when it's not slippery. That's not too, you don't really need it, but on other occasions, if there's any ice left over, you would definitely hang on there. It's not particularly steep at this stage, falling to the left, but it is a long drop, and it's all rough shale, so you wouldn't actually want to go sliding down there. When eventually you get up to 7,000 feet, what do you get? You get a tea house. This structure was built in 1927 for guests of the Fairmount Chateau Lake Louise Hotel. But since it was bought by a family in 1959, and they have owned it and run it ever since. There's no gas, water or electricity, so supplies are helicoptered up at the start of the season or backpacked up there, or occasional mule. But obviously with the snow up there and the glaciers, there's no shortage of actual water. The staff also walk up and they stay up there for 5 days, go back down again, and then bring up more fresh supplies with them when they come back for their next shift. So they have to be pretty fit. They use propane stoves, and everything is freshly made each day. And by the time you get there, you definitely need a cup of tea. I don't think you're going to get anything stronger, and you certainly wouldn't want to have it because you've got to walk back down the mountain. This actually opens up into the valley of 6 glaciers, and unfortunately I don't have a picture of that because it was looking directly into the sun, and with all the glare from the snow and ice, let's just say the picture didn't happen. On the way back down, you do get glimpses of the lake, which are tantalising and beautiful, and you also see the other side of the valley. The colour seems to change at different heights. It's definitely stronger when you're looking down onto the lake. You may, what a wonderful place to get married, really, and certainly for the photographs. I did think he looked a bit precarious, and hope he didn't actually finish up falling in. You can also canoe on Lake Louise, and it's even more expensive here. It'll set you back about £100 an hour, but there's always people willing to pay that just to have the experience. This is where the water runs away from the lake, so it's come down from the mountain at the end, through onto the lake, and then runs away into various rivers. But I just like that shot. So this just demonstrates the magnificent, majestic Mount Victoria. It just is so majestic. It's 11,365 feet and completely dominates Lake Louise. The glacier at the top is also called Victoria Glacier. And of course, as it was the Victorians who first introduced climbing to the area, that's the reason why Queen Vic gets all the plaudits, but it sure is a glorious sight. And of course you can go the other side. Well, this is a shortened lens version. If you've got such a sight to see, why not make the most of it with a nice cup of tea and a piece of cake, just like any camera club day out. A few birdies. This is an American robin. It's bigger than ours, about the size of a starling. And this is a Clark's jay, very popular in the area. They eat the seeds from the conifers. Not entirely sure what this is. There's a bird called a junco, but rather like with our LBJs, there's about Heinz 57 varieties of juncos. It's certainly the right shape, but I wouldn't guarantee that that's what it was. Another one of the places to wander along off of the parkway is Johnson's Canyon, a walk of about 2.5 kilometres in all along a sidewalk, which in places is just bolted into the side of the mountain. Here you see the water just runs through beautifully, and so as you walk you pass various waterfalls to a larger waterfall, and then at the end a bigger waterfall. And the waterfalls themselves are extremely pretty. So how about an R moment? Various chipmunks and squirrels, and once again a bit like LBJs, it's a bit difficult to tell which one is which, but fantastic, inquisitive and very quick creatures. They're also very small. And cute, eh? Don't you think? Very cute. On the other hand, this squirrel has got to the point where completely ignoring the photographer because it's got a nice nut to chew on. And yet another bit more cute. And one last cute. I think this one is actually definitively a chipmunk. Once along the way you come to different ones. Sometimes you're very fortunate that the lakes are right there on the road, and this is Bow Lake. Bow Lake is very interesting because you get very different cloud formations every time you pass, and it can go from looking like a lovely place to be to extremely mysterious to somewhere you wouldn't want to be. More wildlife. This is a white-tailed deer. I often wonder why they call deer white-tailed when most of them are, but this one is recognisable by its huge ears, and it's definitely, if you move, it hears you, as you can see here. But then obviously somebody else pulled up to have a look, we saw that, and then it hopped off. Moose. I have very few pictures of moose. They're quite secretive. There's quite a lot of them about, but you rarely see them. And where you don't want to see them is on the road. Often feel that these creatures are made by committing because the legs seem to go all over the place when they're running. They also have very bad eyesight, so just because they're looking at you, they don't necessarily see you. And they're also remarkably dangerous, not because they attack you, but because if they cross the road in front of you, which they do, if you hit it, you can see they've got long spindly legs, and one ton of body rolls up the bonnet and straight through where you're sitting. So it wouldn't be too pleasant an experience. But they are nevertheless creatures of the area, and quite famously so. But I didn't worry about getting quite close to it. In fact, I was too close for the picture, really. Because, as I say, they didn't probably have the vaguest clue that I was there. This is a Colombian ground squirrel, and they really do flatten themselves out, always alert, and always ready for action. And when they go, my goodness me, do they fly off at a fast rate of knots. This is my favourite lake of all. It's Moraine Lake, and to me, possibly the most beautiful. It's situated in the Valley of 10 Peaks. It's just under 2 miles long, and it's at a height of 6,183 feet above sea level. And the best colour is late June. Once again, the little dots are canoes. You can walk to the end of this, but that's it, unless you've got your climbing gear with you. What I am standing on here is some large boulders, which have been carved out a bit to provide virtual platforms to look on, and there are a couple of seats to sit on. They've chipped some steps into the arrangement. It's one of those places where when you just stand up there, you just stand and gaze. And this is my favourite picture of it. And I think awesome is an overworked phrase, but when you get the reflections of all the snow, the ice, the mountains, it's quite fantastic. I do wonder about this Valley of 10 Peaks, though, because it depends what you call a peak. You can sort of go from anything from 8 to 12. And so we're almost there now. This is towards the end of our journey at the getting towards Banff, which I won't be going into here. And these are called the Takakau Falls. They've got the largest drop of fall in the area. The total fall is 1,224 feet, but this part of it is 837 feet. The water is just beginning to pick up the power, and you get lots and lots of spray. And naturally, you have to get up as close as you can to where the big stuff is falling. And the closer in, I just like the atmosphere of this particular shot. Once again, showing the roughness of the rock, the spray. It just sums up that particular part of the area. So, I'm not going to leave you in any towns, cities, or waterfalls. There's only one creature that can end the program, and that's our friend the bear, which was fortunate enough to see in the snow, wandering along, minding his own business. So, thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope that you've enjoyed what I've had to show you and what I've had to say. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Jim. It's always nice to see someone else's images, so great to see these. And on behalf of everybody that's watching this evening, thank you very much indeed. You've got a lot of comments coming in now, so it's just read one or two out to you. Graham H has put, very interesting, Jim, many thanks, good. Jill's put some stunning images and a great tour of Canada, JB, thank you so much. Sue said, thank you, Jim and Graham. Beautiful photos. Nothing to do with me, Sue. They're all. Oh, that was. Well, yeah, that was Sue. No, yeah. Very good, Jim. Very informative. A lot of research gone into this talk. Well done. Now treat yourself to a glass of wine. Ray's put, thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Paul Walker's put, very nice, Jim. Thank you. Enjoyed it very much. Thank you, Jim. From Diva. Richard Fox, thanks very much. Super presentation. Gail's put, lovely pictures. Jim, thank you. Michael Hudston, great show, Jim. Neil Pottinger, amazing, Jim. Thank you from Neil and Sean. And thank you from everybody else. The thanks are still coming in. And as I say, once again, on behalf of everybody, thank you very much from everyone. And a big thank you to everyone for watching and turning up and giving us the time. I'm going to do a few tests this next week on this mic stroke new webcam and just make sure that I've got it sorted out. Life wouldn't be the same without a little hiccup, would it? So, but no, I'll try and get it all sorted out. A week's time, a week on Thursday, if we've got them back, and hopefully we should have because Jill's asked for them back this weekend, is the farming competition and the images. I will be reading the judges' comments out, showing you the images and just giving you a few of my thoughts. I'm not judging the pictures, by the way. I'm just giving you a few thoughts dependent upon the amount of comments that the judge gives. If he gives plenty of comments like Bob did with his special monthly one, then you know, I won't need to say a lot, but if needs be, we can just fill the evening in with a bit of chatter about the images, etc. So I'm going to sign off for now. Say once again one big thank you to Jim. Thanks very much, Jim. And we'll see you all next week at the next virtual meeting. So from all of us at this end, that's Jim and myself, goodbye for tonight and take care, and we'll catch you